Okay, so today I'm going to be giving my informative speech about America's game, and what began as our game early in the days when organized sports first came to this country as baseball, and then kind of how it evolved over the last decade into football. So to start with, in the beginning, when we first kind of became this fully developed economy, we were ready to have recreational sports and Big Ten professional sports, baseball instantly became our first love when it comes to this. Baseball, it was founded here, it spread everywhere, and it grew up with the newspaper especially too. Newspapers became an early form of media in this country, so as newspapers proliferated around the country, it was easy for people to keep track of their favorite baseball team. And then kind of as you fall into the 1900s, radio becomes more popular, and baseball's made greatly popular in this country by radio. Everybody, it's a good sport to listen to, it's a perfect match really, listening to baseball on the radio. So it's developed, and it's the established giant in America. Pretty much everyone in America loves baseball. After World War II, however, we start to see some changes, not only with what kind of sports we like, but also with the American consumer itself. After World War II, we start to see all the GIs coming home, and the economy really takes on the modern economy we see now. The American consumer, we're building huge subdivisions like you can see here, strip malls and stuff. It's like the modern American consumer has come of age, and TV begins to come of age here. This is the first decade we really start to see TV households become a commonplace in American homes. And we also see a new game start to go, football. It kind of comes from this renegade sport altered by Walter Camp from the rules of rugby to kind of something Americans are starting to watch more, and it really starts to gain traction in the 40s. As we move into the 50s and 60s, we really see football again go from this kind of C+ sport to something that Americans begin to love. Part of this comes with rule changes to the game. The game becomes standardized in the 1950s. There's everything from the jerseys they wear today, all the way to the face masks, and even the rules that enable the forward pass to go through. Before, in the 40s, it was primarily a running game. No one was passing the ball, so it made it a lot more interesting. Television begins to grow in the 50s and 60s. More and more televisions are popping up all over America, and it really starts to outpace radio as probably the most popular form of media. And then there's the 1958 title game. It's between the Colts and the Bears. It's really important because it was the first championship game ever broadcast on television. It ends up going into overtime. There's a bunch of passing yards. It's really exciting. And this is kind of the point where America realizes that football is this really interesting game and that it might have a future with us. The 70s becomes the most important decade when it comes to sports in America. At the dawn of the 70s, baseball is still the most popular sport. Even with all the growth and development of football, baseball is still hugely popular. However, at the beginning of the 70s, the AFL and the NFL merged. There's always been two leagues when it comes to football, the American Football League and the National Football League, on both sides competing against each other. For the first time in the 70s, though, we see one big league come together. It becomes organized and standardized. It's a lot easier product to sell with television. In the 70s, we also see the television market come of age. It's more organized, it's more standardized. We have the big three networks, CBS, ABC, and NBC. And as these kind of two things become organized and standardized, it's easy to push to the American public. As television begins to do this and it becomes organized and this product's pushed everywhere, we see huge revenue gains. This is really in the 70s with football, the first time we see pro athletics as we see it today with these massive salary contracts, huge stadiums, just big time everything. And the NFL gets rich off this. They get tons of money, and from here they're able to kind of buy their future in a sense and really become the dominant giant they are today. Throughout the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, again, just revenue begins to grow everywhere. And it's really important with television. That right there, that's the NFL today. It becomes the first actual show with the NFL, the first show dedicated primarily to the NFL on network television. It's broadcast every week on CBS. It's hugely popular just because it brings football into every home in America. People begin to grow up with it. And we start to see the generation of sports fans that grew up in the 70s and even a little bit into the early 80s. They become the first generation to truly grow up with football and see football as the main sport in America. And this is the time, again, when everybody begins to point to football as outpacing baseball as America's game, truly the most popular sport in the country. As we move into the future, we still see television as the dominant media force in America, as we've seen probably since the 60s. However, there is the internet. It's become hugely popular, and it's kind of now the more popular media. Maybe not the more popular, but definitely it's gaining huge strides in everywhere and gaining more fans. It's not to say that it's maybe outpaced television, but it has devalued a little bit. The NFL, however, appears to be keeping pace, again, by any metric you look at, whether it's TV ratings, profits, everything, jersey sales. The NFL is still hugely popular. still keeping pace. But the future is uncertain. No one's really certain. There's especially another round of rule changes, probably the first major set of rule changes since the 1960s are coming up about how to make the NFL safer and how to make it appeal to a current generation. But for today and for now, they remain the main giant in North American sports. I'd like to thank you guys for your time today.